SEO is search engines. YouTube is a search engine. Pinterest is a search engine. Bing, right? So we want to make sure we have the right keywords. So within Pinterest, right at the top, it doesn't matter if you're on mobile or on desktop, you see that little magnifying glass, you click, that is search, right? That's how people find the things they're looking for. And yes, people can scroll on Pinterest, but what shows up on their home feed is determined by their searching habits.
Welcome to the Agents of Change, the podcast experience you've been waiting for your entire marketing career. Search, social, mobile, AI, blockchain, and neuromarketing. These are the Agents of Change, and so are you. Digital marketing success awaits, and your transformation begins now.
Welcome back to another episode of the Agents of Change podcast, the podcast that helps you reach and engage more of your ideal customers online so that you can grow your business. My name is Rich Brooks. I'm your host. This is episode 583, powered by Flight New Media. Running your marketing solo is impressive, but even Batman had Robin. And when he didn't have Robin, he had Alfred and Oracle. In fact, according to the Batman Wiki, there are currently 28 individuals in the Bat family, and that doesn't even include the Justice League. But I think I lost the thread here. Right. If you need a sidekick or a complete Bat family or support team for search engine optimization, Google ads, branding, Facebook ads, or building a better website, the team here at Flight New Media has been suiting up since 1997, and we'd love to be your man or woman in the chair. You can find us at Take Flight, that's takeflyte.com, or at the Agents of Change website. Fill out the contact form or reach out to me on social media. I'm the Rich Brooks everywhere. No matter what channel you choose, I personally will get back to you so we can talk about growing your company. This week's topic couldn't come at a better time because we've been having many discussions with our clients here that used to kill it in search. They blogged, whether monthly or weekly or even more often, and Google rewarded them with traffic, leads, and glory. Everything was beautiful. But lately, Google has spurned bloggers' love. For years, more than half of all searches have resulted in zero-click results, meaning the searcher didn't go further because they got their questions answered right on the search results page. And that was even before AI overviews, which have gobbled up most of the informational search traffic, the traffic that used to go to blog posts and other articles. But today, we're going to be looking at a platform that's still delivering qualified leads to informational content, and that platform is Pinterest. I know that you know that Pinterest is more than just DIY boards and sites for planning weddings, but today we're going to dive deep into how your audience uses Pinterest, how they find new content, and how they engage with that content on the platform. What works, what no longer works, and how you can get more results in less time. So grab your pen, grab your pins, and let's get down to business. My next guest simply loves Pinterest. As a blogger, she achieved 1 million views on Pinterest in her first month, organically grew her email list to over 24,000 subscribers, and gained thousands of happy customers. With 8 years of Pinterest marketing experience, she has taught over 7,000 blogs, brands, and businesses through her online courses and coaching. As your pin coach, she is here to help you increase your traffic, grow your audience, and boost your sales for free with Pinterest. No ads are required. So let's jump into the organic side of Pinterest with Nadalie Bardo. Nadalie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. You know, I love talking Pinterest.
So let's start with your blog. Tell us about the focus of your blog and then what caused you to experiment with Pinterest.
For sure. So I start my blog after I quit the 9 to 5. I realized maybe this is a similar story to some of your listeners, but I spent so much time trying to get like my dream job just to realize that it really wasn't a dream at all. So I, ended up quitting the 9 to 5, starting a blog and exploring topics like goal setting and what it takes to truly slay your goals, i.e. to like get where you're really trying to get in life, right? So I started this site and quickly realized my biggest problem was you spend so much time working on all the other things. forgetting and maybe just not even being aware that the biggest challenge you're going to have is to actually get people to find you, to get clicks, to get traffic. And back in the day, I'd heard a lot about Pinterest, and I just committed myself to learning everything I could about the platform. I launched and crazy things happened. I finally started growing my traffic. I was able to get into Mediavine. I was making sales for my digital planner. And everything changed really and truly when I put all of my energy into figuring out Pinterest. And since then, I've been committed to helping others do the same.
So tell me kind of in a little bit more detail what you did, because it seems with Pinterest, like I remember there was a time we were trying to use Pinterest for our own blog and we started creating like an image that was more Pinterest friendly and things like that. But what were some of the specific steps that you took that really blew up your audience?
For sure. So before I started, I analyzed some of the big accounts out there to see, okay, like what are they doing that I can replicate for myself? Like what's actually working, like what's ranking in search results? And I started doing this back then, and it's really commonplace now, is I started designing multiple pins per link. I remember back then I got into literal arguments with people about whether or not you were supposed to do that. And I was like, why shouldn't I? I only had around 5, 10 blog posts, and I was able to hit high amount of views because I designed multiple pins in different styles. So if we're saying pin to everyone who's like, what's a pin? It's essentially an image or a video file that is shared to Pinterest. So if you share it to Pinterest, it's called a pin. And typically that pin is going to have a link, right? So that's one thing I did. Another thing I did that many people hadn't done at that time was I noticed that quotes, so those image graphics with just text, were really popular. So I started designing quote pins for every single thing that I shared on Pinterest. And that really blew my account up. And still to this day, many of those first pins I designed in this fashion are still driving clicks today.
So when you did this, were you like, if I went to your blog post, either through Pinterest organically, I get to, and let's say you did 5 pins for that particular post, am I visually going to see all those 5 pins, or do I only see them when I click on, save this to Pinterest?
Yeah. So I do within my content, I always have like my hero feature image. And the pin for that post is just a cropped feature image, right? So we all know feature image is more of like a horizontal size image. I would just cut off the sides. Like that's my pin right there, right? Why am I giving myself extra work? And that's in my content. I actually, at this point, I just hide feature images because it's pushing down our content above the fold. So I don't even display feature images. The pin image is my feature image in many ways now. And throughout my content, you'll see quote pins, right? Because for me, that's what I've kind of become known for. There's so many of my quote pins on Pinterest at this point. And then I'll publish it. I'll let it run. I'll save it to Pinterest that first time to the best possible board. And I'll wait a couple of weeks to see how it does. If that pin takes off, it's showing me, hey, this is a piece of content that pinners are interested in. Let me go design some more pins. So I have around 7 pin templates that I'll use to design for my content. But I always test that first image first, because I found that the best your content is going to do is with that fresh link and that first time you pin it. So if that takes off and does really well, I'm like, okay, this is worth my energy to go sit here and design some more pins for that link. I won't design all of them out of the bat. I'll test it. And if it does well, or if I'm like, okay, maybe, for example, you had one article that was like how to start a podcast, and you published a next one that was like the top 10 podcast episodes you need to have. Knowing that that first article on podcast did well, it might be worth the time to just design a whole bunch of pins to start off, because you qualified it, you justified the time, and you know it's going to do well, most likely, if that first one did well. So that's kind of how I approach things.
All right. So you write your blog post and you start with 1 pin, say. And so once you publish it, are you then clicking on that pin or clicking on the image or save to Pinterest, whatever the steps you're doing. So you're the first one who's actually pinning it, and then you're choosing what board you want it to appear on. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. So when you create your content, and this is the same if you have a product or if you have podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever you're creating, I encourage everyone to design at least one pin for that piece of content or product. We're putting so much energy into creating. We need to put equal energy into sharing. And it's easy if you have a blog, and it's easy for you to kind of embed that image into your content. There are many social sharing plugins out there. For Pinterest, the best ones right now are Hubbub Pro or Social Warfare Pro. They just enable you to preload that pin with the title, with the description, so that you yourself can save it. But if someone comes to your site, they can easily save it. So I myself, once my post is up, I'm on my site and I'm pinning it from my content to Pinterest to the best board that I have that's in alignment for SEO. So if anyone's like, what's a Pinterest board? Think of it as a folder. So just as you would organize your content or your products, that's how we want to organize our Pinterest profile. So you're going to have folder titles like back for podcasting. Maybe the main keyword you want that folder to be is start a podcast or podcasting tips, right? So all your articles on podcasting are going to that folder. You're not going to share it to entrepreneur tips or even agents of change, right? Avoid having titles that are, I don't want to call it cutesy, but these fun brand boards. You want it to make sense for SEO, right? Because Pinterest is a search engine. So that's what I do. And then like part of my workflow now is, so first it's published, I immediately pin it. Then I like to sit down and batch. So I'll design more pins. And in terms of like, what am I designing pins for? I have my content in general into seasonal categories. So they're the things I know that are good for spring, good for summer, good for fall, good for winter, because humans are seasonal beings. It doesn't matter what business you are. You can tap into the seasonal ebbs and flows, right? So if right now we're recording, it's April, I'm already like, I'm done designing my pins for summer because I know that how the search starts early. So that's like my next tip is like, just batch design some pins for your relevant content that's coming up and then go schedule those out. So you're just constantly bringing yourself traffic and making sure your pin is found at the right time by those who are looking.
So, all right, so many interesting things that are going on here. I want to ask a question about how did you decide what boards you were going to create and focus on? I'm guessing it came from the themes of your blog, but how did you know that there were enough, or how did you know that maybe there weren't too many?
Okay. Yeah. So I believe we can create a crazy amount of boards on our Pinterest profile, but it's hard to know like what's the right amount. You create as you go, right? So a big mistake I see a lot of bloggers make on Pinterest and on their site is that, they publish 5 blog posts and for some reason they have like 10 category pages. And it's like, I get that you're aspiring to have content in all these categories, but it's empty. So let's remove this from your menu or let's hide this from your profile. So instead, create as you go, right? So maybe to begin, you have topics on starting a business, starting a blog, starting a podcast, sure. And you know that down the line, maybe you want to have different topics in addition, but don't create that folder or don't create that category page or that Pinterest board until you actually have something to go save there. So I think to start, 5 boards is a good place to start, but don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have too little or I have too many. You could have too many and you'll know you'll have too many if, like, for example, my account is so old at this point, I know I need to like clean out my boards and I will decide to delete a board or merge some boards together if I'm looking at my pins and they all have like 0 views and 0 clicks. So that's just telling me this board is not doing anything for me. So I will go look and see, like, for example, right now, I know I have a board on, what was it? Something like mindset. But like, I already have a mental health and wellness board, and maybe the mindset board's not doing anything. So I'm going to merge that with my mental health board. So the way to know is create boards as you grow because you're going to grow, right? And you're going to create more content. Like we're in this for the long game, or at least I think most of us are. And don't be afraid to say like, okay, I have too many or this board isn't working. It's okay. You can go move those pins to a different board. Just don't delete the pins. Move them to a different board, especially if they're pins to your website. We don't want to delete them, but you can easily reorganize and reshuffle things. It's not set in stone.
All right. So there may be a time to prune or to merge different boards, basically. And like you said, you see the activity, you kind of get a sense of what people are interested in.
Yeah.
So I understand everything you've said in terms of like you write the blog post, you create the pins, you pin them to the appropriate board. What is the process for getting other people to discover that pin, especially if we're just getting started? I mean, you obviously, I'm sure you've got a bunch of followers now. You pin something, there's already a certain amount of followers that are going to take action on that. But for those of us who don't have much of a following, what happens at that point?
So that is where Pinterest and social media differ, right? So a lot of the time, how well you do on Pinterest doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how many followers you have, right? It doesn't matter. I have over 80,000 followers. When I post a pin, it has very limited reach in those first 2 weeks. I'd say less than 1,000 people will see my pin in the first couple of weeks because it doesn't matter who you are. Pinterest is going to test the waters before it mass distributes it to even more people. So the primary way your pins are going to be found is through search, right? Pinterest is a search engine. It's not.
And you mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you say search and SEO, are you talking about within Pinterest or SEO in general out on Google?
Within Pinterest, right? So SEO is not exclusive to Google, right? SEO is search engines. YouTube is a search engine. Pinterest is a search engine, Bing, right? So we want to make sure we have the right keywords. So within Pinterest, right at the top, it doesn't matter if you're on mobile or on desktop, you see that little magnifying glass, you click, that is search, right? That's how people find the things they're looking for. And yes, people can scroll on Pinterest, but what shows up on their home feed is determined by their searching habits, right? So you want to make sure you are looking for your keywords, you're adding it to your pin title, to your pin description. So if these are new terms, think of it as a version of like an open graph title or an open, like your metadata for your article or your product, right? We're writing that headline, a little blurb, but for Pinterest, the headline is 100 characters max and the description is 800 characters max. And you're just making sure you have your primary keyword phrase, just like you would do your search, your SEO for Google. You want to do your SEO for Pinterest and get to the search bar, see what are those search terms that come up that are relevant to what you're sharing? Use a tool like Pinterest Trends, see if you're able to find keywords within there and you're adding it to your pin title, adding it to your pin description, because that is what's going to determine more than who's following you, how many people see your content. How much traffic you get is vastly, like most of it is determined by the interest in that topic. It's not determined by how many followers you have. So if you're creating content for a topic that a lot of people are interested in, more people are going to see it versus creating for a topic that nobody's searching for, right? So you always want to lead with your keywords. And I know Pinterest, if we can think, oh, it's like Instagram and it's all about the image, it's all about the pin. Yes, I will say pin design does matter, but it doesn't matter as much as making sure we're targeting the right keywords. Because without the keywords, ain't nobody seeing your pin. It's the language of the search engine, and that's what's going to get you the best results. So don't be like, I have no followers. Like, it's too late for me. No, that doesn't matter. Followers are going to find you by just pinning quality content consistently. That's all you got to do, So it's a little bit of a different mindset than like Instagram.
So you're talking about SEO, which is one of my favorite topics, usually not within Pinterest. And I know that with SEO, you did a great job of explaining how you find some of the keywords by looking at the search box and suggested search. Outside in the world of Google, there's a lot of SEO tools. There's Ahrefs and Moz and all these different types of tools that helps us. Are there any tools that you use that are Pinterest specific as far as uncovering some of the riches and the niches, as they say?
Yeah, I'm going to be very careful about what I recommend because I feel like when recommending something, you need to like holistically look at what you're recommending. So I don't believe that it is necessary for you to pay for any keyword tools for Pinterest. I don't believe it's necessary. And I'm saying that as someone who has a niche site. Like self-growth and personal development is a subcategory of education, which in and of itself is not a large niche on Pinterest. And I've been able to I've had months with over like 100K clicks to my site with my niche site, finding keywords just using the Pinterest search bar and using Pinterest Trends, which is a free tool that is accessible to anyone with a Pinterest business account. So that being said, the one tool I do use is Pin Inspector, mostly because it's a one-time fee and it's not requiring me to pay for it monthly. And I just use it to search for the keywords I want to use to optimize my pins. Because sometimes when you get on Pinterest, it's distracting because there's like so many images and you just want to like find your keyword, get your work done. So that's the one tool I recommend, but I will never say that it's necessary. There are so many accounts getting insane views and insane clicks with the free SEO tool that is the search bar and Pinterest Trends. It is not required.
All right. Now, for a business that has either never used Pinterest or abandoned their account years ago and is excited by some of the numbers you shared with us today, what are some of the first steps for building a presence today or rebuilding a dormant account?
Yeah, really great questions. I would say we want to do, if you're coming back to Pinterest, it's always a good idea to do a little account cleanup. I think, many of us maybe shift focus. Like if you abandoned it from years ago, you want to make sure that your account is still in alignment with what you're doing now, still in alignment with the content you're creating. So go ahead and just, once again, find those fresh keywords. We always want to have that optimized bio, your about bio. Like, what's that one sentence that fully encompasses who you're serving and what you have to offer? So you just want to make sure you update that or create that if you're new to Pinterest. Also, make sure you have a Pinterest business account. It doesn't cost anything. It's completely free. So if you have a personal account, for example, maybe it has a lot of followers, maybe it already is in the name you want, or you've been using it as your unofficial account, make it official. Get you that business account because that's how you're going to get access to analytics. That's how you're going to get access to tools like Pinterest Trends, right? You also want to make sure you claim your domain, right? So it's super easy. You're just going to drop that little header tag into your WordPress site or whatever site you built. So just Google claim Pinterest website and I guarantee you're going to find YouTube videos on it, right? So we're just checking those boxes. You want to make sure your profile photo is that recognizable image of you or your brand. Maybe it's a logo. And then I encourage you to start with keywords. Okay, so take a look at what you've got. What are the links that you can share? Is it blog posts, podcasts, YouTube videos? Are there products? Do you have a Facebook group you want to promote? Like, what do you actually want to share? Make a list, right? And then get searching and find the right keyword for each and every one of those links that you want to share. And then you're going to go get designing. So with Pinterest, yes, we want to have pins. And the fastest way for that is just to have some pin templates. There are a ton of templates on Canva. You just want to make sure that they're the right templates for you and that you brand it to your brand. What are your fonts? What are your colors? What's the vibe? You want to make sure you fit it. And one pro tip for you guys here, if you're like, okay, pins, that sounds hard. I don't know where to start. If you don't know what your pin should look like, go look at the search results for the keywords you're trying to rank for, right? Sometimes it's an image pin. So guess what? It's just an image. You don't have to add any text to it. But if it's content, like a blog post or a podcast or YouTube video, commonly, we're going to have some text on that, right? Because we need to give context, right? And if it's a product, it's usually just a lifestyle image of your product. But to know what type of pins you need to go look at the search results, okay? And then meet the assignment. And yeah, like that's where I would get started, right? Just create that business account, know what your keywords are, design a handful of templates that you're able to use for all of your content. And yeah, like when it comes to, I know there's always questions like, okay, how often do I pin, right? Would you say that's likely a next question?
It wasn't my next question, but it's an excellent question that I'm sure a lot of people have. So yes, go ahead and answer that one.
Yeah, I was just saying minimum, you want to be pinning one new pin a day. You don't want to repin. That means resaving the same pin again. Go design a new pin instead. And I encourage everyone to just wait a week to share the same link again. We don't want to flood or overdo it with one link. So you can easily space your pins out. Pinterest has a scheduler now. If you haven't used it in a while, you can schedule 30 days out. And there are many Pinterest schedulers out there that you can use to get far ahead. So yeah, sorry, what was your actual next question?
No. So but that brings up a good point. So what you're saying is pin once a day, but don't necessarily pin, like you can have different pins for the same link. So the same blog post that you write or whatever the thing is that you want to promote, you could create 5 pins and you might just space them out over the course of 5 weeks and you would continue to bring in new traffic that way. I was actually very curious about, I know this isn't a social platform. In fact, I love how you talk about it being more of a search platform. And a lot of the things you're discussing is basically like really good SEO tactics as far as reverse engineering someone else's success. So you know what the search engine, in this case, Pinterest, is looking for. So I love that. I know it's not a social platform in the way that we think of things like Facebook or Instagram, but what type of interaction should we have with other people and other pins? When you're putting together your boards, is that 100% Nadalie Bardo content, or are you also finding other like-minded people that you're pinning their content within your boards?
Great question. I'd say the most social you become is, yeah, in a way, saving other people's pins. But we are in an era of Pinterest where it's really about you as the creator and not so much about flooding your account with other people's pins. And I'm not saying don't save another creator's pins, but only save it if one, it's quality. Go click on the link. There's a lot of links on Pinterest, unfortunately, where like sites have gone under and it's just been taken over by some spam site. So one, check the link. And two, make sure it's relevant to your audience and that it's quality content. But in terms of like a ratio, I want you all to focus on you. I'd say 80-90% of the pins you save to your profile should be pins that you've created yourself. So as I said, minimum 1 pin a day, but 2 to 3 pins a day, new pins a day is a comfortable place to start. There's no way or reason to be pinning more than 10 times a day, as you might hear that advice out there. It's overkill and it's unnecessary. If you're targeted with your keywords, you can accomplish a lot by being strategic as opposed to just being sloppy and like throwing a whole bunch of pins out there. Other forms of socialization we can do. Don't really message people. That's not really a thing that you do on Pinterest. You'll see that people may comment on your pins. People can also react. Saving your pin to their own account and to their boards. That's the type of engagement that we want on Pinterest. But yeah, like hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, it definitely does. For people who live and die by the funnel, how can we use Pinterest in our marketing or sales funnels?
I love a funnel. It's like my favorite word. So yeah, Pinterest is the top of your funnel, right? So it's where we find people to enter and go through the pathway that I like to call it as like where like a plane takes off, right? It's your, what am I?
Runway?
Runway. Yes, that's the word. It's the runway, right? So you want to make sure people are always like, I want more clicks. I want more traffic, to which I say, why? Like for what purpose? How are you going to capitalize on that? How are you going to convert these people, right? So yes, the pins are going to increase your exposure. They're going to click and they're going to come to your website, but what are they going to find when they get there? Are they going to see in the top bar this amazing quiz that's exactly what they need and leads into your funnel? Are you offering them an epic freebie that they absolutely want? If it's for your podcast, are you inviting them to subscribe? Like, how are we maximizing our clicks? Because I'm a firm believer in getting people on our email list, which is how and where like I love to convert. And yeah, so you just want to make sure you have those things in place, because traffic for traffic's sake, it's like a nice vanity metric, but if we're not doing anything with that traffic, what's the point, right? So you just want to make sure you've laid out that runway, right? They click, what do they see? Is there a great freebie? Maybe there's a quiz. Is there an offer? Do you have affiliate products there? Are you inviting them to subscribe to your podcast? Like, what are we doing with all these clicks we're getting? So very important to make sure it's connected.
And you've mentioned that you've grown your list quite a bit from leveraging Pinterest. Can you give us any specific tips, something that you did that helped grow your list so big?
I would say I've created so many freebies. Like, I've been blogging for so long. I've tried everything. I've tried the printable. I've tried challenges, ebooks, courses. My number one converting freebie is my quiz. So I have a quiz that I created with Interact Quiz Builder, and it just sits on my site. As I mentioned, my site is about goals. So my quiz is called What Should Your Goal Be? And it just breaks down the 10 areas of your life, and it sends you a specific free guide and then pitches you a product. So I'm a huge fan of a quiz because, for one, it can just appear on all the pages. And if you ask the right question or create the right quiz, it really can lead into a profitable funnel for yourself, right? So really big fan of quizzes.
Awesome. If somebody was listening today and they wanted to get started on Pinterest, they're so excited, and by what you shared with us today, what is the first step that they should take on their Pinterest journey?
Get started. So go right to the Pinterest website, sign up for that account. If you have an account, find your password, log in. I'd say, don't wait. Don't say, oh, I'll go get to it. Get to it now, because I don't know about y'all, but I've been feeling like so much is changing so quickly, and the avenues to traffic are getting narrower, or I hear the Instagram algorithm is going wacky. We all know what happened with Google. So I'm just like, this is a place that still works, that still you can get clicks. So really, I hope that just lights a little fire in you to be like, yes, let me give Pinterest a try. And if you say yes to that, don't burn yourself out. Consistency is more important than you trying to do more than is feasible for you, which is why I say just start with one pin a day and grow from there, So get started, log in, open that account.
Say yes to the pin. Love it.
Yes.
All right. For people who want to learn more about you, learn more about your courses, where can we send them online?
For sure. You want to head to yourpincoach.com. That's where you'll find me. I've got lots of goodies for you. I've got a masterclass. I have a Pinterest best practices cheat sheet. So if anything I said, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't take notes. I need to know what the rules of Pinterest are. I got you. Grab yourself that cheat sheet, and it has everything you'll need to, get started with Pinterest. So that's yourpincoach.com.
Excellent. Nadalie, this has been great. I think I'm going to go reinvestigate Pinterest myself. Appreciate all your time and expertise today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I loved what Nadalie shared with us. And I told her after the interview that she gives great bite-sized pieces of advice that anyone can follow. If you missed anything, you can get the full transcript, the blog post, and the links that Nadalie shared with us. Just head on over to theagentsofchange.com/583. This episode felt like a very actionable one, and I hope you don't sit on your hands if your marketing revolves around creating content, especially if you've seen a decline in organic search traffic to your website. Get off your hands, get off the sidelines, and get back on Pinterest, and be the agent of change I know you can be.
Don't miss another thrilling episode of the Agents of Change podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform.